The Magic Paintbrush, Chapter 4. Lao Lao, Amy quickly realized, was nothing like Nai Nai, her grandma on her dad's side. Nai Nai used a walker to shuffle around and said things like, "Slow down, kids. I can't move like I used to." Lao Lao buzzed like a wind-up toy, her short legs pumping her up and down Flushing Street without a hint of fatigue. Amy felt like the old woman as she hurried to keep up. They explored the nearby grocer. Pretty good variety, don't you think? Poked their heads into the laundromat. Aren't these soap dispensers adorable, Amy? And picked up snacks from 3 different bakeries. I can eat my weight in buns any day. Have you had pork floss ones before? Here, try this. Flushing matched Lao Lao's energy. Every corner overflowed with more stores, more restaurants, more masses of people. "Oh, look," Lao Lao said, when they stumbled upon an arts and crafts store. She hustled Amy toward a shelf of sketchbooks. "Pick your favorite. Lao Lao will buy it for you." Amy shook her head. "That's okay. You don't have to." "Nonsense. Look at this one. Nice, thick, cold-pressed pages. You can do proper watercolor on these. It won't warp or bleed." "I don't really do watercolor," Amy said. "Acrylic, then," Lao Lao said. "You could even try oil." "I don't do those either," Amy said. But she said it quietly, and Lao Lao had already swanned over to the checkout counter. So in the end, Amy just accepted the sketchbook and added it to their shopping bags. "Thank you, Lao Lao," she said dutifully as they left the store. Lao Lao grilled Amy about art the whole walk home. What mediums did she like? Which artists were her favorite? Did she enjoy drawing landscapes or people or something else entirely? No one else had ever asked Amy so many questions about art before. Not even Diego. No one had ever listened so intensely to her answers. "I'm not good at landscapes or people," she admitted. "I didn't ask you if you were good at them," Lao Lao said gently. "Do you enjoy them?" I think I'd like them if I were good at them." Said Lao Lao. Amy got the impression that this wasn't the answer her grandmother had been hoping for. But wasn't it natural to like things you excelled at? "What are you good at, then?" Unbidden, Amy's art box creations came to mind. She pushed them away again and racked her brain for something that sounded more impressive than made-up stuff. "I'm still figuring it out," she said finally. To her surprise, Lao Lao accepted this answer with a solemn nod, as if Amy had said something profound and not just dodged the question. "Will you let me know if there's any way I can help?" "Oh, all right." "Wonderful." Lao Lao winked and nudged the shopping bag that contained Amy's new sketchbook. "Here's a little unsolicited advice just to start. Watercolor and acrylic and oil and any other sort of art that you don't do, give them another try, since you're still figuring things out. You never know what you might enjoy." Amy flushed, embarrassed by the sincerity of Lao Lao's gaze. "Okay, sure." Her parents called just as Amy and Lao Lao reached the apartment building. "Everything's going great," Lao Lao said, pressing her phone between her shoulder and her ear. "How much longer until your next flight? You'll have plenty of time?" Amy slipped into the kitchen as their conversation continued. She dumped the bags on the counter, put the eggs and milk in the fridge, then headed toward the guest room. "Amy," Lao Lao whispered. She gestured at the sketchbook and smiled when Amy returned to grab it. "There are paints and brushes in your room. Feel free to use whatever you find." Yes, I can still hear you. "No, we went for a walk around Flushing. Amy was a terrific tour guide." Back in the guest room, Amy flopped onto the bed and studied the Hudo painting. How did Lao Lao make the brushstrokes look so casual? How did she know where to paint in minute detail, down to a chip on one of Hada's fangs, and where to only hint at the creature's silhouette? The grandma She'd imagined herself babysitting, would never have created something like this. Maybe there was more to Lau Lau than hot tea and perfect chrysanthemum paintings. Maybe she could help Amy improve her art. Of course, Lau Lau wanted her to actually use paint and a paintbrush. Well, maybe that was all right, just for this week. Amy searched the room for painting supplies. Half-used tubes of acrylic littered the top dresser drawer, and she scrounged up a palette from the nightstand. But she couldn't find a single brush. She knelt and shuffled through the cardboard boxes, setting aside coffee table books and boxes of pastels. Then her fingers closed around a small lacquered chest. It was lovely, even beneath a layer of dust. Swirling clouds covered the sides, and rusty brass inlay protected each edge. A dragon motif decorated the dark red lid. "Amy!" Lau Lau called. The chest slipped from her hands. She fumbled for it, grabbed nothing but air. It banged against the floor. The lid snapped off its hinges. And worst of all, a jade paintbrush lay in two pieces on the ground. "Amy, what was that?" Amy's mind went blank with panic. I I dropped my phone," she stammered. It was the first excuse she thought of. "But it's fine. It still works." "Come here. Your dad wants to talk with you." Amy shoved the lacquered chest back into the cardboard box. Then she grabbed the broken paintbrush pieces, pushed them beneath her mattress with trembling fingers, and went to take the phone. Amy forced herself to sound cheerful and normal, and not like she'd just ruined a priceless antique, while first her dad, then her mom, came on the phone. Once their next flight took them to Norway, they wouldn't have cell phone signal until the cruise ended. They promised to text updates whenever they got Wi-Fi, but warned Amy there wouldn't be many opportunities. "We'll catch up properly when we get back," Mom said. "Sounds good," Amy fidgeted. Lau Lau was in the kitchen starting dinner. I need to help Lau Lau cook." "That's great. You have fun, honey." Amy rushed through her goodbyes, but she didn't go to the kitchen. Instead, she tiptoed to the guest room and locked the door. Then she slid to the floor, her heart pounding. Great. Just great. Amy hadn't been here 24 hours, and she'd already broken something. Wincing, she fished the paintbrush pieces out. The bristles were long and black, a sharp contrast to the milky jade handle. The brush tapered delicately at one end and was thicker than her thumb at the base, where two fine gold rings served as the sole decoration. Still, it was gorgeous, or had been gorgeous, before Amy shattered it. Dread bubbled in her stomach. Maybe she could repair it with superglue, or maybe she should just confess. The room was suddenly too stifling. She pushed the window open and stuck her head out. If only she were home, she could climb onto the roof and stare into the backyard, get some wind and peace. Here, all she saw were crowded sidewalks and fire escape. All she heard was traffic and someone scraping out a walk. Of course, if she were home, she wouldn't have broken the brush in the first place. The severed pieces were strangely warm in her hand, not cool like her mother's jade bracelet. The stone seemed to hum. Honestly, the break was so smooth and perfect. If she just pressed the two halves together, the pieces leapt from her fingers, collided in a flash of light. Amy yelped. When her vision cleared, the brush sat on the floor, whole, perfect. The jade handle glowed in the sunlight. Amy stared, slack-jawed. Magic, she thought. And then, just as quickly, don't be silly. There was no such thing as magic. But here was something inexplicable. A paintbrush that had moved by itself. that had repaired itself. It seemed an awful lot like magic.